He didn't leave with a bang. He left with a sigh, a sideways glance, and the quiet frustration of a man who had seen enough. Count Dooku didn't storm out of the Jedi temple screaming about betrayal. He simply walked away like someone who finally realized the people he trusted most were the ones quietly letting the galaxy rot from the inside out. And for that, they called him a traitor. It's kind of hilarious if you think about it. The Jedi spent years preaching about inner peace and wisdom, and then completely ignored one of their wisest members when he said, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't be war generals working for corrupt space politicians. That's not rebellion, that's common sense." And instead of listening, they brushed him off like he was some grumpy uncle who brings up politics at dinner. But the more you dig, the less funny it gets. Because this wasn't a tantrum, it wasn't a power grab. It was heartbreak in slow motion. Dooku wasn't trying to take over the galaxy, he was trying to stop it from collapsing. He saw the Senate crumbling, the Jedi losing their soul, and the Republic turning into a shiny machine with rusted insides. And the Jedi Council just sat there, staring at the floor. That's what makes it sting. Dooku didn't fall, he was pushed. Slowly, quietly, one betrayal at a time. And when he finally crossed the line, everyone acted surprised, like, wow, how could this have happened? As if ignoring every warning sign for a decade wasn't a surefire way to get a villain with a cape and a sinister stare. What makes it worse is that he still carried a spark of belief. Even as Darth Tyrannus, there were moments, glimpses, of the Jedi he used to be. The man who trained Qui-Gon. The man who genuinely thought he could make the galaxy better. And the tragedy is, he probably could have, if anyone had just listened before it was too late. In this video, we're going deep into how the Jedi didn't lose Count Dooku, they gave him away. How their silence, their arrogance, and their refusal to evolve turned a nobleman into a necessary enemy. And why Dooku might have been the only one who saw the end coming before it ever began. There's something strange about Count Dooku's story that always feels half-told. We hear the usual rundown left. The Jedi became a Sith, started a war, got his head chopped off by Anakin on a bad day. But it never quite adds up, does it? Why would a respected Jedi Master, trained by Yoda himself, just toss it all away for a red lightsaber and a hooded cosplay? He wasn't some bitter washout or edgy rule-breaker looking for trouble. This was a man at the top of the Jedi hierarchy. A teacher to Qui-Gon Jinn, a skilled diplomat, a revered warrior. So what could push someone like that to abandon everything he spent his life building? Was it ambition, or was it something deeper and more dangerous? Every Jedi who fell had their own tragic arc. Anakin had his fear, Ahsoka had her disillusionment, but Dooku had perspective. He wasn't caught in a moment, he observed the big picture, and what he saw disgusted him. The rot in the Senate, the hypocrisy in the Jedi Council, the blind obedience to a system that served itself first. It makes you wonder how many others saw what he saw, but didn't have the nerve to walk away. Or worse, how many chose to stay silent just to keep their robes and rank. Dooku didn't flinch. He saw the Jedi serving a republic that had sold its soul, and instead of playing along, he stood up and left the table. And maybe that's what really scared them. Not that he turned against them, but that he dared to question them. In a galaxy obsessed with control, he chose clarity, and that made him dangerous long before he ever became a Sith. What's infuriating is how the Jedi responded to him like he was the problem instead of the symptom. Instead of asking why he was disillusioned, they labeled him lost. Like it was easier to blame the man walking away than confront the mess he was walking away from. That's not leadership. That's deflection in a robe. The Jedi were supposed to be peacekeepers. But at some point, they became the Republic's enforcers. Sitting on high, deciding the fate of planets while pretending they weren't neck-deep in politics. Dooku didn't turn his back on the Jedi's ideals. He turned his back on their compromises. And instead of self-reflection, they gave him exile. Let's not forget the Jedi refused to investigate corruption in the Senate until it was too late. They ignored systems falling into chaos, wars brewing on the outer rim, and senators enriching themselves while people starved. And Dooku dared to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be letting this happen. Their answer was basically stay in your lane and keep meditating. They were so obsessed with balance and the Force, they couldn't see the imbalance in the galaxy. And when one of their own pointed it out, they shrugged and said, well, he's not one of us anymore. That's not just frustrating, that's infuriating. Because it wasn't Dooku who abandoned them, it was the Jedi who stopped being Jedi. It's easy to talk about Dooku, like he was always Darth Tyrannus, but that strips him of everything that made his fall matter. He wasn't born angry, he was carved into a villain by a system that refused to care. Watching Tales of the Jedi makes that heartbreak painfully clear. Every time he pleads for justice, you can hear the Jedi's indifference echo louder. He watched his student die without consequence. He stood before a council that chose caution over compassion. And little by little, he started to lose faith in the only family he had. Not because he wanted to, but because they left him no choice. And that pain doesn't disappear just because he swapped sides. There's something tragic about a man who keeps searching for justice and only finds betrayal. He didn't want to destroy the Republic. He wanted to cleanse it. He believed the Jedi could have led that change. But when they chose the Senate over the people, he stopped believing. And once that light dimmed, there was no one left to pull him back. Even Yoda, his own master, couldn't see through the storm in time. And when they finally met again, it was on a battlefield, not in a moment of reconciliation, but in a duel with nothing left to save. That wasn't fate. That was failure. Failure to listen. Failure to care. Failure to act when it mattered most. Dooku didn't just lose his faith. He lost his home, his brothers, and the only place where he once felt purpose. And by the time he was gone, all the Jedi could do was whisper that he'd fallen as if they hadn't been the ones who let him slip. But even in his fall, Dooku was nothing short of magnificent. This wasn't a chaotic descent into darkness like Anakin's collapse. This was methodical, calculated, principled even when twisted. He didn't embrace the dark out of rage. He did it out of necessity. Or at least, that's how he saw it. He brokered alliances across star systems. He outwitted the Republic, the Jedi, and even Sidious for a while anyway. He created an army, orchestrated a war, and almost brought the galaxy to its knees. All while keeping his composure like a man giving a lecture on statecraft. It wasn't passionate, it was precision. And he wasn't without restraint. Dooku didn't revel in violence. He didn't hunt Jedi for fun, or burn planets just to prove a point. Everything he did had purpose, even when it veered into darkness. He believed that only through collapse could the galaxy be rebuilt, and he was ready to be the architect of that collapse. There's a kind of terrifying brilliance to him. He wasn't Palpatine's puppet, he was a rival, a visionary who saw through the illusion. And for a while, you could argue he was the most dangerous man in the galaxy, not because of his lightsaber, but because of his clarity. What's wild is that in a different timeline, if the Jedi had just listened, if the Senate had just changed, Dooku might have become the galaxy's greatest reformer instead of its most misunderstood villain. And yet, buried underneath all that control and bitterness, there's still a flicker of the man who believed. Dooku didn't walk away to rule. He walked away to fix what was broken. The hope wasn't gone yet, was redirected, misshaped, but still burning under the surface. He believed in justice. Even when it failed him, he believed in reform. Even when no one stood beside him. And that refusal to give up, even after being cast out, is what makes his fall so layered. He could have vanished, disappeared into the shadows. But instead he tried to reshape the galaxy, no matter the cost. And maybe that's what makes his story powerful. Not just the tragedy, but the resilience before it. The fact that someone so deeply betrayed still chose action over apathy. That even in darkness, he was searching for a way forward. That's not just villainy. That's pain molded into purpose. If we can learn anything from Dooku, it's that faith isn't about following blindly. It's about standing when no one else will. He wasn't the first Jedi to question the Order, but he was one of the few who actually followed through. And maybe, just maybe, that makes him one of the bravest. Because hope doesn't always wear white robes and speak softly. Sometimes it speaks through the defiance of a fallen Jedi who simply refused to play along. In the end, Dooku didn't fall because he craved power. He fell because he reached for justice and was met with silence. The tragedy isn't just in what he became, it's in what he could have been. A bridge between the light and the dark. A reformer instead of a revolutionary. A hero instead of a weapon. His death was swift and brutal. Executed not as a Jedi or a Sith, but as a liability, by the very machine he once warned would consume everything. Anakin's blade didn't just end a life, it closed the book on the only person who dared to rewrite the rules before the war even began. And when the Jedi fell, when Order 66 turned them all to dust, maybe that was the final echo of a warning unheeded. Dooku didn't betray them, he foresaw their downfall, and in trying to prevent it, he was branded the cause. That's not irony, that's a system eating itself. The resolution here isn't clean. Dooku's choices were flawed. His methods became cruel, but his intentions, his disillusionment, his courage to walk away, those still matter, those still resonate. Because his story wasn't about turning evil, it was about losing faith in something that stopped being good. And maybe, just maybe, if someone had listened to Dooku when it still mattered, the Clone Wars might never have happened, and the galaxy might have been saved from the tragedy he saw coming all along. Thank you for watching the whole video. I make videos because of my love for Star Wars and Marvel. I've been asked countless times how I get my subtitles, and I generate them automatically with a tool I built. That same tool can be used here on my website. It's completely free and doesn't require signing up. My website contains the subtitle generator that is perfect for any video. Blogging post, where you can sign up with your email and receive notifications for when I post, and also my 3 channels. Critical Analysis Hub focuses on Star Wars and Marvel movies. Critical Analysis Hub Plus looks at Star Wars and Marvel shows. And Critical Analysis Hub XP centers on video games, like The Last of Us series, Jedi Survivor, and GTA 5. Thank you for being a fan.